Start your day.
6 minutes after 7 o'clock, wherever it is that you're tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation, welcome to the Situation Room, the agenda-setting program here in Kenya and indeed around the world. What is happening in the spaces where you exist and the spaces that you hear of? We'll have that conversation and making sure that those conversations come to the limelight every day. Our live streams up on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, and on TikTok, and our audiences on KTN, Karibuni Sana, to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. Today, we're getting into a new conversation this hour, but before we do that, how about I remind you about, okay, so you're looking for a university education. Where do you go? It's a question. Big question mark. Pop. You don't know which country to go to. Another question mark. You don't know which course to study. Another question mark. And the question marks keep coming and coming and coming. What do you do?
So you ask another question.
Where do I go? So the folks with the answers to all these questions are Cradle. Cradle.com. That's the website that you need to visit. And so we ask ourselves, okay, so what happens here? What happens is that they're going to take your information and they're going to match you to some of the best universities around the world that you can afford in the countries that you would not mind living in. And then they would guarantee that you're not a victim of fraudulent activities, these scammers who try to say, bring your money, we'll place you here. You see the process from beginning to end. They've realized the gaps and they say, you know, how about we fill those gaps? And all of this will come together in the World Study Abroad Fair that takes place on the 31st of August. Right there at the Gallant Mall in Parklands from 11 to 4 p.m. You can come, talk to universities from different countries around the world. They will be there to tell you which courses you can apply for, apply on the spot and gain admission. Get information about your visa, get information about accommodation, get all the information that you need. You could go at 11, walk out at 4 with it all sorted out. But you need to register. Register on cradle.com, www.craydel.com, or call 0799 000 444. And enjoy that on the 31st of August, which is this Saturday. All right. Our guest for the hour is here. Wakili Ndegwa Njiro. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Wakili.
Been long.
Habari yako?
Niko fiti.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes.
I can't see Eric.
You can't see him, but he's here.
You can't see me here? I can see a stranger.
The stranger has a name.
In Jerusalem.
Ken, say hi to Ndegwa.
Ndegwa is my friend. He knows what he did last week.
I know.
He's not going to speak to me.
Oh, so you guys are fighting?
Yes, he knows what he did last week on Wednesday.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yes, I know what happened.
Yes.
And you know, you are leaving the Senate at around midnight. So that's why it was not possible for us to appear.
Now you see, he knows what happened.
Yes, I know, and I have to convey my apologies.
You see, now he's apologizing.
Yes.
See, now we as the peace, City and I, who've taken this position as peace brokers,
Yes.
we are saying, Ken, it's
Peace
not because...
envoys.
Yeah, envoys.
Peace
thank you. In
brokers
fact-
is always misrepresented. You must appear in the. You might put yourself in the category where you do not belong. You are not a broker. You're an envoy.
Envoy, thank you.
Wakili is a good man until he takes to the podium to impeach a governor.
And it is on that premise that we'll be having this conversation this morning, is it
Yes.
not? You've been a very busy man and not sleeping.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about that. But first, let's welcome you properly.
Thank you.
You know, there's a way in which we do it.
Yes,
and
I
you know,
know what CT is about to do.
Okay. So, and he went to a very interesting country this week.
And I think this book of his needs to be placed properly in a well good.
It needs to be
annals.
immortalized.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. If the company has that policy, then this book should be one of those archives that must be well taken care of.
So City has woken up this morning and he's decided that his eyes
He's
are going to
looking
be
at people today. He's not speaking. His eyes are speaking more than
Yes.
his words.
Okay, if it makes you happy, I'm listening with my eyes.
Okay.
A secret
Yes.
of two is soon a secret of nobody. This is a proverb from the People's Republic of Algeria.
Are people a secret of two? You'll soon be a secret of no one.
Yes, nobody.
Then whom do you confine in?
Well, if it's the method that you go about it. You see, if you're a Kenyan,
Yes.
you cannot even claim to have confided in anyone unless there's more than one person.
Yes.
Essentially, you look for your 10 best friends.
Yes.
And you confide in them and you swear them to secrecy.
Yes.
Then they go out and look for their 10 best
It
friends.
will be all over. Whom to trust.
So how do you interpret that, Wakili?
The question is that you have no place to call home. Yes, you don't know whom to trust. Even those people whom you think are your good friends will at one particular time betray you. And that one, I link it with the agenda we had in Azimio.
Yeah.
We all thought you were going for one safari until we got to a crossroad and some people decided to betray the others. They decided that Addis Ababa is better for them than Nairobi.
And Canaan.
They lost the way to Canaan. Perhaps they might be near Egypt when they're in Addis Ababa and they might retrace themselves. Yes. That's the betrayal we are speaking about.
Where?
That's a betrayal.
Betrayal in the city.
Yes.
Telling you.
By Francis Mbuga.
Yeah, and the other group says, hatutaungana na hawa watu. At the end of the day, for political convenience, Kenyans are left.
You can do anything.
So both those people in Azimio were betrayed, and those guys in KK were equally betrayed.
As they were telling secrets to one
Yes.
another. Okay.
Yeah. That's the nature of the people that we live with.
All right.
You can never trust them that you'll ever get where you have
And them here, I believe, are the politicians, isn't it?
Well, I'm so specific, but that is about William Ruto and Raila Odinga.
And how different are they from the other political leaders?
They're not different.
Okay.
They're not.
I think
They're not. And that's the tragedy this country is having, Ken.
Politicians, same basket.
Yes. But we are soon going to change that culture. Soon.
How now? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at one of the things that you did last week.
Yes.
Things happened very quickly. And I keep saying this because the speed and alacrity with which this impeachment happened was boom, baf, bow.
Yes.
We saw impeachment motion.
Yes.
Very short time after that, we then saw it was debated.
Yes.
Then we saw Senate voted,
Yes.
upheld the impeachment.
Yeah.
Thereafter, we saw a stay of impeachment.
Yes.
And now we are waiting for
the court
to determine.
Yeah.
In a matter of less than 7 days,
A lot of things happened.
all of these things happened.
Yes.
What's going on?
What is going on is that, and this is coming at the wake of the 14 year to the new constitution.
And just for purposes of clarity, you were the legal representation for the County Assembly of Meru.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, what is happening is that we are in a country where we have not decided to take the right route towards attaining good governance and towards realizing the fruits of the new constitution that we enacted. And therefore, as much as one has a right to access court, and as much as the courts are independent, then you also have to ask yourself where the separation of power is. So we are still in a formative stage in trying to decide how these processes will and which course the process will be taking. The impeachment of Meru governor was properly before the House. Properly prosecuted and executed, a vote taken both at the county assembly and at the Senate, and a decision made for her to go home. But it's within her rights and Article 48 for her to access court in equally, and Article 27 for equal protection and equality before the law. It is within her rights to do what she did. But the question is whether then the court should also exercise restraint when they are dealing with some of these issues that might bring a bit of conflict in the question of the separation of powers, or they'll apply the doctrine of necessity where it is so necessary them that they must issue these conservatory orders. Because the moment you injunct a constitutional process, they are simply saying that organ was not properly seized of that particular matter. Anyway, it's a matter that is still in court. I don't want to be accused of sub judice. So we'll deal with it in court. Yeah. But all what was happening at the assembly is, and the impeachment process is holding our leaders to account. For the little thing that you think you do, we hold you to account. For example, there was an issue about where the former governor of Meru County, Kawera, misdirected the public that 86 million has been collected towards the funeral of the sniper. And if you look at the Constitution, you realize under Chapter 6, leaders are to be held account to their statements and their words they make. It looks to be a minute issue, but it's a constitutional issue. Because the question is, when you behave in that manner, are you breathing confidence and trust in the office that you hold? So we're in a struggle of making sure that we hold our leaders to account. And that is what is ailing this country, that people do not want to be called to order. Yeah.
And yet, the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, gives allowance for every single process or every single element of the process that we have seen carry out in the last few days.
Yes.
And that's the Constitution.
That's correct.
So now when you're dealing with an impeachment of a county governor, that for some reason, whether it is people, whether it is members of the assembly who saw that she was not carrying out herself in the way in which she ought to.
Exactly.
What we've seen happen is still along the lines of the Constitution.
Yes. About the court processes.
Yeah,
that is correct. And that is why it is within her rights for her to access justice. And you cannot say that she's that avenue is not available, because you'll be removing her through the Constitution and then denying her the opportunity of exercising her rights under the same Constitution. And that is the beauty of our democracy, that our democracy will subject you to all processes that will culminate in you feeling that justice was dispensed with, and not justice, but substantive justice was dispensed with. And that is the beauty of our Constitution. Yeah.
The thing I find interesting
is
that every time you have an impeachment matter before the Senate, and then the matter goes to court, what I, as a Kenyan, benefits from all these processes, I get to understand the workings of the Constitution better.
Yeah.
I get to understand how the law deals with some of these issues.
Yes.
Because it's yet another precedent that is being set. There's a former government of Embu called Wambura, who went through this process not once.
Yes.
And somehow he succeeded at every turn.
Yes.
So the precedent is there of somebody who's impeached, goes to court. Court finds that he has grounds for retaining his job.
Yeah.
The question is this. In all this, how would you say that the interest of the citizenry is served, whether it was a citizen of Embu County, now the citizen of Peru? How?
When you look at Article 1, City and Ken and Do, it says that power belongs to the people and shall be exercised in two levels, either directly or indirectly.
Yes.
And when we speak about indirect exercise of power, then we have donated those powers to various institutions: Parliament, the executive, and the judiciary, and the county governments. So when Senate seats to adjudicate over this matter, they are exercising the sovereignty of the people, because they are driving the power and the ability to execute that process from the people. But equally well, when you look at Article 159 of the Constitution, it says that judicial power is equally derived from the people and shall be exercised in the name of the people. So all these institutions in a democratic state are exercising the people's power. So at any given time, and of course our Constitution appreciates the question of checks and balances, because it is obvious that no one can claim infallibility. One institution or one organ can go wrong on a particular issue, and then it is corrected by the next tier of checks and balances. That is important, that a person who has undergone through the process of impeachment can still access court, so that if there were some constitutional faults or legal transgressions that were occasioned during that process, she will not just suffer a remedy without a wrong. There will be another institution that will check on that particular issue. The question then should be, if at the county assembly all the way to the Senate, the impeachment process is time-bound and regulated in terms of time, then should somebody seek permanent reprieve in court? So we also need to have legislation saying that you have a right to access court after impeachment, but subsequent to you accessing court, the court that insists of that matter must adjudicate these issues within a particular period of time, so that you do not continue to serve under the reprieve of a court order. That is the missing link. If you go to the Constitution, to election petitions, they are always time-bound. You must complete these election petitions within 6 months. If you go to the Court of Appeal, again, it is provided for. Previously, would have people going for election petitions, and they would serve the entire term on the basis of that particular election petition. But we realized that misnomer, and we corrected it. So it is the work of the Senate then to correct this by legislating and saying, you who have suffered an impeachment, you have a right to access court. But the court must adjudicate over this matter within a particular period of time so that then justice can then be dispensed.
Is it spelled out?
No, it's not spelled out. Up to date, there is no legislation that has been created by the Senate to provide for the mechanisms of impeachment. We only have one section called Section 33, which is not elaborate. It's not fully elaborate on what ought to happen.
How do you make that elaborate? What process must be followed to get
the procedure of impeachment ought to be a process that somebody feels that justice has been dispensed with. For example, when the matter goes to the Senate sits as a political organ and a quasi-judicial organ. So it is supposed to strike that balance. So it is supposed to sit and listen to the evidence coming from the county assembly and listening to the evidence coming from the defense, that is the governors, collate that evidence and make a determination. So when the Senate sits to make that determination, a Senate of 48 senators, each senator sits as a single judge, representing the delegation from his county to hear and listen to this, to hear and determine this case. But what happens at the fullness of time is, then the standing orders, some senators insist that other than just going to cast your votes upon evaluation of the evidence, you need debate. When you subject a judicial process to a debate, you are, of course, fettering the impartiality of that particular senator who is now acting as a judge. And that's a tragedy that our laws have not been able to address. So that if a person is impeached in the Senate, he or she feels that she was granted a fair trial.
How do you correct this anomaly?
Legislation.
And who is supposed to?
The Senate.
If that is to happen,
yes.
Oftentimes we give this prescription and we say that, okay, there's an anomaly here, it needs to be rectified, it needs to be fixed. But the folks then who are supposed to actually fix it, if there's no genuine desire, if there is no goodwill, or before you even get to that, if there is no awareness or even accepted awareness that there's a problem here, what is the likelihood that they would actually look at this legislation and say, okay, guys, it's about time we did something about it, without situations reoccurring that would show you there's something? The likelihood of you looking at this thing and saying, let's do something about it, then is decreased significantly.
No, I don't even think that is the problem. The problem, the reason why the Senate is not, because how many impeachments have we had in the last 13 years or so? There's so many impeachments.
That's correct.
And Wambora's impeachment should have settled this. However, the concern is this. Senators usually graduate to be governors. Governors come back to be senators. These guys are protecting their turf. If they legislate to an extent that they know at the end of the day this will be settled in that record time, then it jeopardizes their future chances when they fall in the same position. So for me, aside from what Ndu is asking, I think the reason why there's no legislation, and you can confirm this or explain it, is because senators need to protect that political space.
Cannot be more right than he is, and equally do. The fact is that some of the best proposals in terms of legislations are mutilated by political expediency. That somebody needs to protect his future political career, and therefore you cannot bring forth an elaborate legislation that will address these anomalies.
Protect his future career.
Yes.
The career is not what is being impeached.
Yes.
It is a wrongdoing.
Yes.
Purported, perceived, actual, real, imagined. That is what.
Yes, exactly.
So are we therefore implying that whether it is the senators who want to be governors or vice versa, that they foresee their career as being one where they will do wrong?
Yes, because that has been the tradition in this country, and the tradition that we do not hold our people to account, and that you do not go into public service to serve. You go into public service to enrich yourself, and therefore once you go to public service...
Actually, no, it's not enrich. If you say enrich
to
yourself,
steal,
plunder.
to plunder, to spillage our resources.
Yes.
So you can never be in a position to come up with a legislation that addresses and all that will cut the hand that feeds you. And that's the tragedy about this country. And that's what the Gen Zs are speaking about. That's what the millennials are speaking about. That's what Generation Zote zinazungumzia.
But you know, the good thing here is that even as we're talking about it, their actions are doing us a great service in that they stand revealed. It's clear that anything that would set this thing right and bring about the accountability that we desire will not happen with the lot that we have.
Well, I cannot agree with you more that we need to change. It's a high time that we change the faces that appears on day to day on our screens. That is where the problem is. Since I was young, mimi nimekuwa nikiona Wetangula, nimekuwa nikiona Musalia Mudavadi, nimekuwa nikiona Raila Odinga, nimekuwa nikiona Ruto. You know, old faces have stuck to our screens. It's a high time we change those faces. And not just for the sake of changing them, but changing them with individuals who will meet or who will foot the bill as contemplated in the Constitution. These guys are so accustomed to the processes that they have been perpetuating. And it's the processes of theft, spillage of our resources, unaccountability, impunity, you know, and feeling like they are entitled to those offices. That entitlement is what we must bring down. We must make sure that entitlement falls.
So, I mean, in as much as we're talking about the tenets of what one saw from the very beginning that essentially led to an impeachment, and the issues that we see surrounding, unfortunately, mediocre governance.
Yes.
Would we say that it is not then, is it possible to have the politics of the day run alongside systems that are working properly? That it doesn't really matter what side of the political divide that you're on. It doesn't matter if you're a senator today and you want to be governor tomorrow. It doesn't matter if you're governor and you want to be senator the next time. But it is possible to have systems in place, the rule of law functioning, the constitution being upheld. Is it possible?
It is possible because the constitution that we enacted gave a roadmap, and Article 10 of the constitution, which creates the values and the principles of governance. These values and principles of governance, the Constitution provides that they bind each and every person, both private person and public person, including the institutions created under the Constitution. One of those values is the value of the rule of law. The rule of law binds me as a private citizen and binds the state organs and binds state officers and public officers. And if we were to contemplate a situation whereby Article 10 is allowed to thrive, that it means then that institutions can coexist hand in hand with the politics of the day, and that the politics of the day will respect the institutions that we have created. Because the architecture of our constitution, when we created it, was designed from the previous experiences that we had. They informed a lot on what we were to do. And we realized that if we centralize power in one particular person, it's likely that power will be abused. City knows this better than most of us do. And then that is then to mean that we created these institutions to diffuse power, to decentralize power. But these institutions are not working. For example, why is IPOA not telling us what will happen or what actions have been taken to the people who are killed during the protests? Why? Because it has been held captive. It's a state organ being financed by the state, being financed by Kenyans. Some of the parents who lost their children are still financing and paying those officers working that particular office. But they have no moral. They don't have the commitment to do that which is good. Why? Because for them, it's political expediency that matters. It's about the protection of their job that matters. It's not about doing what is just and what is right. Because we're not able to separate our institutions from the constitutional process, from the political processes.
Why?
Because most of those guys who go there to those positions, I beg your pardon, do not go there on the basis of merits. They go there on the basis of political patronage. And that is what is killing this country. For example, CT sits here as a matter of merits, meritocracy. But when you go to government, CT will not sit on that seat on the basis of merits. It's on the basis of whom do you know. For example, the changes that were done in the recent in this government about the cabinet secretaries, how is that one going to change and revolutionize the status of our economy? How?
It won't change.
How will Oparanya change and make people pay the Fuliza thing, the hustler funds, which he said he should not pay? How?
It's a how question. Let's take a break.
Let's also look at how he performed when he was in Kakamega. So that then we are saying, you did exemplary well. You are equal to the task of running this. Let us look at what Joho did when he was in Mombasa. You know, how then do we reward you? On what basis? It's purely political patronage, because Oparanya is associated to Raila.
Yes.
Joho is close to Raila. Wandai is close to Raila. Bandi is close to Raila. Then you are as white as snow. We don't care about the meritocracy. We have a serious problem about the manner in which our minerals are being exploited. But is Joho an expert in minerals? Even when he was asked during his interview, he never told us his expertise. He only told us that I have gone to school and I have been motivated by Professor Ali Mazurui, which is a good thing. But how well endowed are you in that field in which we are conferring you with the responsibility to execute?
It's a big question. Let's take a break on that note at 28 minutes to 8 o'clock. Advocate Wakili Ndegwa Njiro is our guest this hour. Looking at the Constitution, not just in piecemeal when we're looking at impeachments, but now that then segues our conversation into many other things that are happening, and looking at a day after Katiba Day, is the Constitution actually being upheld? Those conversations continue right after this break.
Get ready for incredible savings with our special factory